Parting the veil, the illusion of separation from God. If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. William Blake. A young prisoner cuts himself with a sharp knife to dull emotional pain. As long as I can remember, he says, I have had this hurt inside. I can't get away from it, and sometimes I cut or burn myself so that the pain will be in a different place and on the outside. Acknowledging this to himself, he decided to approach the Prison Phoenix Trust, whose aim is to address the spiritual needs of prisoners by teaching them how to pray, how to turn their prison cells into monastic cells. After learning how to meditate and practicing it twice a day for several weeks, the young prisoner speaks movingly of what he has learned. I just want you to know that after only 4 weeks of meditating half an hour in the morning and at night, the pain is not so bad, and for the first time in my life, I can see a tiny spark of something within myself that I can like. Another prisoner discovers he is becoming more human and realizes in the process, all beings, no matter how reactionary, fearful, dangerous, or lost, can open themselves to the sacred within and become free. I have become free even in prison. Prison is the perfect monastery. The spiritual liberation of which these prisoners speak is not something they acquired. The clear sense of their testimony is that they discovered, rather than acquired, this sacred within. The distinction between acquisition and discovery may seem like hair-splitting, but it is important to see that what the one prisoner calls the sacred within did not come from some place outside him. The contemplative discipline of meditation, what I will call in this book contemplative practice, doesn't acquire anything. In that sense, and an important sense, it is not a technique, but a surrendering of deeply embedded resistances that allows the sacred within gradually to reveal itself as a simple, fundamental fact. Out of this letting go, there emerges what St. Paul called our hidden self. May he give you the power through his Spirit for your hidden self to grow strong. Ephesians 3:16. Again, contemplative practice does not produce this hidden self, but facilitates the falling away of all that obscures it. This voice of the liberated hidden self, the sacred within, joins the psalmists, O Lord, you search me and you know me. It was you who created my inmost self. I thank you for the wonder of my being. Psalm 139, verses 1, 13, and 14. Through their experience of interior stillness, these prisoners unwittingly have joined a chorus of saints and sages who proclaim by their lives that this God we seek has already found us, already looks out of our own eyes, is already, as St. Augustine famously put it, closer to me than I am to myself. O beauty ever ancient, ever new, he continues, you were within and I was outside myself. One of the more provocative books concerning life with God is known as The Cloud of Unknowing. It is an anonymous work from the English Middle Ages, and its author, likely a Carthusian monk, is simply known as the author of The Cloud. In this work, as well as in a companion piece, the Book of Privy Counseling, the author of The Cloud offers much helpful advice and encouragement to anyone who feels drawn to contemplation. With startling frankness, he says, God is your being, and what you are in God. So as not to cause doctrinal eyebrows to spike, he quickly qualifies his statement, but you are not God's being. Not only has this God we desire already found us, thus causing our desire, but God has never not found us. It was you who created my inmost self and put me together in my mother's womb. You know me through and through, from having watched my bones take shape when I was being formed in secret. Psalm 139, verses 13 to 15. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Jeremiah 1:5. As Creator, God is the ground of who we are. God is your being. The author of the cloud is not an isolated voice in this matter. The great Carmelite doctor of the Church, St. John of the Cross, says, "The soul's center is God. God is the ground of the human being." Various Christian traditions may argue over orthodox or heterodox ways of understanding this, but there is clear and authoritative testimony based on living the Christian mysteries that if we are going to speak of what a human being is, we have not said enough until we speak of God. If we are to discover for ourselves who we truly are, that inmost self that is known before it is formed, ever hidden with Christ in God, Psalm 139, verse 13, Jeremiah 1:5, Colossians 3:3. The discovery is going to be a manifestation of the ineffable mystery of God, though we may feel more and more inclined to say less and less about God. As St. Diodocos of Photiki observed, there are some who are adept in the spiritual life and consciously illuminated by spiritual knowledge, yet do not speak about God. Union with God is not something that needs to be acquired, but realized. The reality, which the term union points to, along with a host of other metaphors, is already the case. The unfolding in our lives of this fundamental union is what St. John of the Cross called the union of likeness. It is our journey from image to likeness. Genesis 1:26. Acquisition and its strategies obviously have a role in life. It is important to pursue and acquire good nutrition, reasonable health, a just society, basic self-respect, the material means by which to live, and a host of other things. However, they don't have a real role in the deeper dynamics of life. For example, they play no role in helping us to die or to become aware of God. Dying is all about letting go and letting be, as is the awareness of God. Union with God is not something we acquire by a technique, but the grounding truth of our lives that engenders the very search for God. Because God is the ground of our being, the relationship between creature and creator is such that, by sheer grace, separation is not possible. God does not know how to be absent. The fact that most of us experience throughout most of our lives a sense of absence or distance from God is the great illusion that we are caught up in. It is the human condition. The sense of separation from God is real, but the meeting of stillness reveals that this perceived separation does not have the last word. This illusion of separation is generated by the mind and is sustained by the riveting of our attention to the interior soap opera, the constant chatter of the cocktail party going on in our heads. For most of us, this is what normal is, and we are good at coming up with ways of coping with this perceived separation. Our consumer-driven entertainment culture takes care of much of it. But some of us are not so good at coping, and so we drink ourselves into oblivion, or cut or burn ourselves so that the pain will be in a different place and on the outside. The grace of salvation, the grace of Christian wholeness that flowers in silence, dispels this illusion of separation. For when the mind is brought to stillness and all our strategies of acquisition have dropped, a deeper truth presents itself. We are and have always been one with God, and we are all one in God. John 17:21. The marvelous world of thoughts, sensation, emotions, and inspiration, the spectacular world of creation around us, are all patterns of stunning weather on the holy mountain of God. But we are not the weather. We are the mountain. Weather is happening. Delightful sunshine, dull sky, or destructive storm. This is undeniable. But if we think we are the weather happening on Mount Zion, and most of us do precisely this with our attention riveted to the video, then the fundamental truth of our union with God remains obscured, and our sense of painful alienation heightened. When the mind is brought to stillness, we see that we are the mountain, and not the changing patterns of weather appearing on the mountain. We are the awareness in which thoughts and feelings, what we take to be ourselves, appear like so much weather on Mount Zion. For a lifetime we have taken this weather, our thoughts and feelings, to be ourselves, taken ourselves to be this video to which the attention is riveted. Stillness reveals that we are the silent, vast awareness in which the video is playing. To glimpse this fundamental truth is to be liberated, to be set free from the fowler's snare. Psalm 123, verse 7. Whoever trusts in the Lord is like Mount Zion. Unshakable, it stands forever. Psalm 125, verse 1. Mount Zion, true pole of the earth, the great king's city. Psalm 48, verse 2. Some who are tediously metaphysical might worry that all this talk of union with God blurs the distinction between creator and creation. Far from blurring this distinction, it sets it in sharper focus. John's Gospel says we are the branches and Christ is the vine. John 15:5. The branches are not separate from the vine, but one with it. If the branch is cut off, you won't have a branch, for it soon shrivels away. A branch is a branch insofar as it is one with the vine. From the branch's perspective, it is all vine. Speaking of this transformation of consciousness that marks the moving into awareness of our grounding union with God, Meister Eckhart says, "All things become pure God to you, for in all things you see nothing but God." John of the Cross speaks along similar lines. It seems to the soul that the entire universe is a sea of love in which it is engulfed, for, conscious of the living point or center of love within itself, it is unable to catch sight of the boundaries of this love. When life is lived from the center, as John of the Cross terms it, all of life seems shot through with God. We might liken the depths of the human to the sponge in the ocean. The sponge looks without and sees ocean. It looks within and sees ocean. The sponge is immersed in what at the same time flows through it. The sponge would not be a sponge were this not the case. Some call this differentiating union. The more we realize we are one with God, the more we become ourselves, just as we are, just as we were created to be. The Creator is outpouring love. The creation, the love outpoured. Union with God respects all distinctions between creation and Creator, and is characterized by awareness of the presence and the transparency of perceived boundaries. When our awareness loosens its arthritic grip to reveal a palm open and soft, awareness is silent and vast in the depths of the present moment. As Meister Eckhart put it, the eye with which I see God is exactly the same eye with which God sees me. My eye and God's eye are one eye, one seeing, one knowledge, and one love. John of the Cross expresses the same mystery. The soul that is united and transformed in God breathes God in God with the same divine breathing with which God, while in her, breathes her in himself. This is the revelation of stillness. When our life in God washes onto the shores of perception, we see no image or shape, no holy pictures or statues, nothing for thinking minds comprehending grip. We know undeniably, like the back of our hand, the silent resounding of a great and flowing vastness that is the core of all. Words cannot express it. 2 Corinthians 12:4. No tongue has sullied it. Such is the impenetrable silence in which we are immersed. Yet this silence cleanses the mind and unbinds the tongue. I will sing your praise. Awake, my soul. Awake, lyre and harp. I will awake the dawn. Psalm 56, verse 7 and 8.
As the mountains are around Jerusalem, the Lord is all around His people. As the mountains are around Jerusalem, the Lord is all around His people. From this time forth and forevermore, the Lord is all around His people. From this time forth, it will always be. The Lord is all around His people. Like Mount Zion in the midst of Jerusalem, we cannot be moved, we cannot be moved. Like Mount Zion in the midst of Jerusalem, we cannot be moved, we cannot be moved. From